Pac-12 preview here from Radio Row. Super Bowl 57. Sounds so crazy to say. 57 Super Bowls. Chiefs, Eagles, yeah, and there's Pac-12 players in it. See, I can always bring it back to the Conference of Champions. I'm Michael Carantino at Diablo00. As you see, Charlie Regal, assistant head coach at ASU, and I like to say call friend, and I don't get him too mad because he's going to make me run and do burpees and all that stuff if I drive him too crazy. But Coach, thanks for coming down, taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
It's good to be here with you, and thanks for having me.
Oh, of course.
What a venue.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, okay, college, I mean, everybody talks about, obviously the national championship and, getting ready for that. Look, I was going to probably say, I would kind of say this for last, but in the direction of, okay, there's 2 weeks between the Super Bowl. Obviously, we get the NFL side and the whole, marketing and media side of it. But as a coach, you've coached in high school, you've coached in college. If you were playing in that big game, would you prefer playing the next week because of the momentum you have going, or do you as a coach appreciate the 2 weeks?
To me, I think that the 2 weeks gives you that little extra, Obviously, after playing a long season like they have, right? Bodies are banged up, and so I just think it gives you the ability to let guys decompress. You're dealing with pros and build their bodies back, and have those guys be at their absolute best this time of year and what they can be, right? So I think I'm a big proponent of the 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's funny because I asked players, and I even asked Andy Reid too about if they prefer, and they say, yeah, the NFL's got the politically correct answer. They got a lot of events to put on. The 2 weeks is absolutely is perfect. And like you said, to the injury standpoint, and I'm not just saying because it's college players. There's a little bit different mindset with college. I mean, if you're playing in a bowl game, yeah, you have those extra. It's one thing, but if now the college football playoff, you're waiting about 3.5 weeks for a game and then 10 days for the championship game. What are the challenges? Again, you've seen it all at the college level. I mean, being a head coach, assistant head coach now, but what are the challenges to kind of keep your players focused, those kids, like you say, focused, and again, not to push them too hard, but not to be too easy on them either?
Yeah, no, I think it's a fine line for sure. And, when you start talking about how the college landscape is going and the playoffs, how they're going to grow and develop, right? I think that first initial game in the playoffs is going to probably be the most challenging because that's where your longer layoff is going to occur. And again, how is that going to work? Because at that time of year we're taking finals. So there's a lot of things to work into that. So I think it's a very delicate situation and how you balance the schedule, keeping guys focused to finish up their semester strong and then focus on the game. But I also, I come back to getting those guys again playing a long season, having the ability to mentally and physically rest and recharge their batteries. But again, like I said, it's a fine line because you don't want it to be too much.
Right.
And then you go into that game flat. And so it's, I think every team and every season is different in how you go about manufacturing those, 2.5, 3 weeks, whatever they're going to be to play that first game as you go into the playoffs.
Yeah, and when I think about but you saying that too, because it's the manufacture part, but plus the momentum. And is momentum more of a thing for fans? I mean, or maybe people think lower levels as in like high schools. You coach at that level. I mean,
momentum's real, man. Like, and I had a conversation with a doctor one time, and we were talking about a very, very cerebral doctor, obviously, and he was just talking about if you could bottle up and sell momentum, you'd be a rich man. Because how do you create it? How do you stop it? And I don't care what level you're playing at, Pop Warner all the way to the NFL, momentum is real. Now, I think there's different types of momentum. I think, the ones that are created by the fans, are certainly different. But there is some carryover where guys start to play well. They start to believe in how they're playing every Sunday or every Saturday, every Friday. And then it becomes, almost habit forming, if you will. And then it's, it's something that is physically contagious. And obviously you see it in swings of games, right? But I think that's, I think that's a superficial layer. I think when you dig down in it, you could really, when he asked me that question many years ago, I kind of I gave him this generic answer, and he was like, yeah, no, hey, idiot, But as I've grown and looked back at that conversation, I think that's a very in-depth conversation, and I think there's a lot of details that you can, abstract from that from that conversation.
Right. All right. Now let's get to the fun part. It's my Pac-12 show. I mean, come on. I'm fair to everybody, even yes. And I call him that on the show. Or my producer Eric, you met, he's very happy that I can show maturity and say the University of Arizona. He's very happy I can say I don't want you to, but I have to do it. But no. But I mean, we came off recruiting. I know we talked, and you guys have done a lot, and obviously Coach Dillingham getting hired. I just think it was kind of funny because I told Coach Dillingham, I go, I know it's been a minute. You've probably designed quite a few things, talked to a million people, but I came out to talk to Coach Regal at Chaparral one day because he always is polite, like pleasant enough to let me come out. Not that I'm leaking anything, because I said to Coach Dillingham, I go, if anybody is depending on a broadcaster to win you a game, you're in trouble. Even though you guys have taught me a lot, you're still in trouble if you're depending on me. But I go, yeah, you came over and talked to me, but you guys hit the ground sprinting. Let me go this way, obviously with recruiting, but you knew him. Obviously at Chaparral, young coach, obviously very hungry. What did you see from him and then to obviously put him on your staff, but knew that he just had that twitch and that it, as you do yourself?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. I think when you talk about Coach Dillingham, the first thing was pure luck in how we came across each other's path. I get the job. He's a senior there. He's had a knee injury. And, he tried to play through it. He just wasn't capable of doing that. So the circumstances, at the time might have seemed like bad luck to him. I'm sure he thought that. It ultimately ended up being, you talk about, and me, a believer in God, like, hey, man, he's got a plan. Like, there was greater plans for Kenny. And there was something about him. I liked him. I could tell right away in visiting with him that he was sharp. And that's how, I got him on the staff. And as I worked with him that first year, I could just see, just his quick wit, his work ethic. He had a good family. I really got to build a tight relationship with his father. And then as we progressed, to where he is now, I think the one thing, and I say this when everybody asks me this, and I'm 100% dead serious on this, is like, at 32 years old, to be the head coach at Arizona State, that requires a lot of intestinal fortitude and discipline to get where you want to go. Right. And to do it at such a young age, that's extremely difficult for somebody, going through their 20s and even into obviously early 30s to keep that focus.
Right.
And for him to be able to maintain that focus and get to where he's at now just shows you what what he can do with this program.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and you say it, and again, I know, older generation saying we all went to college. You're like, okay, by 32, if you walked in at 18 and said, okay, in 14 years, I'm going to be a head coach in college football, most people going into college that went to college would laugh because, no, we're not saying you're just going to party and mess around the whole time, but I mean, it's college. We all had a good time. We all fun playing sports or not. And yeah, so
I mean, you think about that. I was 30. Yeah. When I got the job, right? 31 that first year. And here we are, what is it? We're in 23, I mean, if you'd have sat there and told me, 15, 16 years later, right, I'm going to be at Arizona State working for this guy, would I have been surprised? No, because I knew he had that skill set. Right. But to ascend as quick as he has, again, is a testament to what he's done and his desire and his discipline, which I think is very rare.
Absolutely. And okay, so when we look at the conference now, it's one of those things where, you went to Idaho State, you're a new head coach, but coming back to Coach Dillingham, you guys coming back to ASU, do you feel that it's going to be harder for teams to prepare for you for ASU because of the new staff? Yes, there are still some of the same players, but you brought in a lot, obviously, transfer portal and everything. Do you feel that you still have to do your job? I know you're going to say that, but it's tougher for them, other teams, offensively, defensively, in the conference to prepare for you.
Well, I think, when you start getting into the finite details of schematics, I think every program in the Pac-12, across college football, they have what they're going to do. Right? You've got to have a base foundation in which you teach from. And every program that we're going to play has that. And then obviously it becomes game week situations of how you're going to scheme for said opponent. When it comes to us, I think we have two of the brightest offensive minds in the country. And, obviously in Coach Dillingham, and then a guy that our offensive coordinator, Bo Baldwin, who I got to know and work with at Cal for 3 years. I just think these guys are really, really sharp, and I think that they're certainly going to give us an advantage as that pertains to offensive football. I think you've got two like-minded individuals in that are going to be aggressive and take chances, and I think you're going to see a different Beau Baldwin than you saw at Cal. You know, and you know, a guy that, you know, Justin Wilcox, who I love. You know, I've got a great deal of respect for him as a man and a coach, and he really got me better as a coach, and I love Justin. But Justin is a defensive coach, you know, by nature, defensive coordinator, right? So he's a little bit more conservative, where Kenny's a little bit obviously on the offensive side is going to be a little bit more aggressive, and I think that plays into the hand of Beau, right? You know, because that's what Beau is, and I like to tell people, Beau Baldwin, he's a gambler, man. You know, he's gonna take his shots, and I think that really ties in with what Kenny's doing, and I thought that's what made him an excellent choice to be the offensive coordinator here.
And with what coaches did last year, I mean, obviously you were busy, but I mean, you look at Lincoln Riley coming in, doing what he did. Kalen DeBoer, I mean, up at Washington, pretty much turned around. Jonathan Smith staying the course. I know Oregon State, obviously, you're geographically not, you know, you weren't too far from them, but what Jonathan Smith has done, and now, but I know he's not a first-year coach, but between DeBoer and Lincoln Riley, the turnaround explosion can be that quick. And like I said, I know you guys got to stay focused, but do you look at, obviously not a carbon copy, but look at kind of like what they did and the success they had and see like, okay, what are ways we can install and emulate this in a way?
Well, let me say this to you first. I think when you talk about Oregon State, you know, I was there at Cal in the North, right? Playing the Oregon State every year. You know, Jonathan came in there in 2018, and what those guys have done there, I think because of their location, he's the most underrated college football coach in the country. I don't think there's been a better turnaround in the last 5 years than what Jonathan Smith and Oregon State has done. I've got the utmost respect for him and that entire staff, because I saw those guys firsthand when they got there. Right. And that was a very bad program. And we played them up in Corvallis in 18, and we beat the britches off of them, and they were bad. And that was their first year, and to see where they are 5 years later, you know, what they win 11 games.
And the beatdown they put on Florida in that bowl game.
I mean, that just says a lot about a very, very underrated coach and staff. So I got the utmost respect for them. You know, when you talk about Lincoln Riley and what they did at SC and you know, what Kalen did at Washington, what's the one thing they got in common?
They had a good quarterback.
Bingo! Yeah. Ding, 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 ding,
yes,
ding, ding.
I got the right answer.
So, you know, I think that's exactly what it is, man. Like, you know, we've got to find that guy that's going to play at a high level. Right. You know, you look at teams that are highly successful. I don't care if it's the Pac-12 or, you know, said conference, SEC, ACC. They've got a good trigger man. Right. And so that's, you know, and I think we've got two of the best in the business, again, in developing quarterbacks, in Coach Dillingham and Coach Baldwin. And so I'm excited about the guys we've brought in, and I'm excited to see what these guys are going to do with them.
And, I mean, I'm glad you have the maroon and gold on now. I told Eric this the other day when I was going to have you that, unfortunately, you did coach at U of A for a Sun Devil alum. It's always tough. But, hey, coaches got to go where they got to go. Was I not always good about saying you congratulations?
Always good to me. And I will say this to my man Eric. You know what? And I know the Sun Devil faithful is not going to want to hear this. But you know what? I enjoyed my time down there. Absolutely. The people of Tucson were fantastic to me, and I'll forever be grateful for that opportunity that Rich Rodriguez gave to me. Now, you know, I'm on the other side. You know, we got to spank their behinds. Right. But I can't negate that. It'd be lost on me. I think Tucson.
I was one of the first when you told me after the state championship, or you were talking, that I would. I was like, man, I am so happy for you. And I know I remember told you, a million people probably told you, I will not put red and blue on. I will not. And outside of the Territorial Cup game, man, you're my guy.
That's right. You and Zorny, Dave Zorn,
yes,
man.
Yes, we were both.
He still crushes me for going down there.
Well, he went back up to the Harvard of the Pines. He's working in Flagstaff. Yeah,
I did. I got to do an interview with Dave.
That's awesome.
You know, when we played NAU this past year when I was at Idaho State. So love Zorny. He's the best.
No, absolutely. But I look at the whole conference, and to me, and you say with Jonathan, I'm with you on that, because the fact that Oregon State had the patience, and I can't stand when people say, and you said at the location, it is tough to recruit you. Mike Riley recruited there too before he left, and then a little bit, obviously a lull, and then Jonathan Smith comes in. I know it's a separation between him and that, but what Jed Fish did at Arizona too. I mean, obviously you were down there. Rich Rod was starting to do it. Kevin Sumlin, recruiting just didn't go. It was tough for him. But I mean, Jed Fish kind of came with that same energy. What did you see from Arizona? I mean, again, I know you're working. What did you see from Arizona improvement-wise last year?
Well, and I think, I'm going to go back to Rich for a second. I think when they look back in the annals of U of A football history, the people 10, 15 years from now are going to look back at that Rich Rodriguez era and say, that was a hell of a run.
Yes.
I mean, we won 8 games. We won 8 games. We won 10 games and went to the, won the Pac-12 South, went to the Fiesta Bowl, and won, like I said, 10 games for only the 3rd time in school history.
Yes.
So it hasn't been done a lot down there. Obviously didn't end, ideally, as we all know. But, and I saw Jed out on the road. We were at a basketball game together. And I told him they've done a tremendous job, right? They put an emphasis on recruiting the state, and it's only going to raise their game and our game. And obviously with the local connections that we have now, we're going to flip the script and put pressure. Like we're here to own the state.
Right.
Make no mistake about that. But, again, you see that transition of they went from 1 game to winning. What'd they win? 5?
5, yeah.
5 wins, right? What did they get? What did they get in the offseason?
I don't know. You got
Same answer.
a quarterback. A quarterback, yes, quarterback.
Yeah.
Yep.
Consistency,
James Delora
man.
from last year.
I'm
James
not
Delora.
the smartest guy in the world,
I
but I know if you stay consistent, you're going to have success.
Yes. They got the quarterback.
Delora. I mean, that guy,
man.
he was accountable. They obviously did a good job as coaches putting those guys in the right place. But, I mean, you get that kid, and what do? You go 400%
out of a
improvement.
Shot.
Yeah.
Knocking UCLA out of a shot at going to the Pac-12 championship
They
game.
win the Territorial Cup, which pains me to say that.
I was there, yeah.
First time in how many years?
5 years, yeah.
So we're going to fix that. But, I mean, kudos to them, and obviously that's a great job by Jaden.
Let me ask you about Kyle Whittingham, because because they're the first to repeat Pac-12 champions since Colorado and Utah came in the Pac-12 in 2011. Oregon was the last team to do it 09, 010, or 09 and 10, and then Utah now they won the Pac-12 back. Kyle Whittingham, I mean. And John Smith, you're right, location. I know more people do talk about Kyle. Obviously, location a little bit different there in Salt Lake, but just your experience with him, because, man, I've been impressed with him. I mean, I knew about him before, but his tenure here in the Pac-12, I mean, is amazing.
Well, and again, I put those, what I said about Oregon State, I put that in a different category than what you do with Coach Whittingham. And you got to look at his body of work, right? That thing is, he's been there for a long, long time. And what they've done over that tenure, I'll never forget when I was out here coaching high school, we took our team to Utah to a team camp up there, okay? And we're sitting in, Urban Meyer was the head coach at the time, in his backyard. And he says to us, me and a couple of my other coaches, I think we've got this winning thing figured out here at Utah. Next year they're playing in the Fiesta Bowl, right, against, what was that, Pitt? I think it was, or UConn. Who was that? I think it was Pitt.
No, wasn't it? It was Oregon.
No, I promise you, it wasn't. It was. Anyway, I'm going to look that up, but I'm pretty sure it was Pitt.
No, you're right.
It was
Pitt.
Pitt.
It was Pitt. It was Pitt.
Okay, so they obviously, when he leaves to go to Florida, they hire Kyle, and I mean, to look at what he's done over, the long body of work.
Right.
It is another guy that just, I mean, the amount of respect that you have for that program. And when we were playing them in Arizona when I was there, you could see that they were getting better and better. And we had some pretty good success against them when I was down at Arizona. But they kind of just, you could see that it was coming, to take that elite step, if you will. And, I mean, when you talk about the elite schools in the Pac-12 now, you have to talk about Utah.
Right. All right, so let me ask you this. Obviously, we're looking at, Charlie Regal, assistant head coach, and the X Factor that everybody calls the X Factor, special teams coordinator. You've talked to me before, and I've said it on the show. I've played the interview we got. You're saying nobody comes to obviously be the right guard, but nobody comes. You got to sell special teams. But looking at this ASU team right now, I know we're getting close to spring ball. What are your expectations for spring ball? And yes, competition. But who are some of the guys early on? I mean, you've seen working out that might kind of be sticking out.
Well, we can't see him work out because that's
right,
illegal.
That's right. I'm sorry.
I want to make sure.
No. Hey, he did not see him work out.
But I think
they're in training because they post social media every.
That's right. I can see the videos. I watch the videos.
So Coach Joe does a phenomenal job.
He does.
Obviously,
he does.
But I mean, okay. So within your interaction, because I know obviously you guys had to talk to the team. You guys have talked, but just
I mean, obviously we're getting reports from the strength staff and talking to the players. We're having meetings with the players. So we got an idea of who's doing what. When you talk from a special teams perspective, I'm excited about the special teams unit that we're going to put on the field this year. It saw 3 seniors, super seniors, if you will, and veterans, and so Josh Carlson as our punter and Dario Longetto as our kicker, and then Slater Zellers, and the last 2 there, Slater and Dario, I worked with at Cal, and so I think we're going to have a really solid kicking, punting, and snapping unit. I'm excited about that. And then as we get into talking about the team, I think that there's a lot of guys to be excited about, and I can go down the list, but as we talk about, I think we've got a really exciting and deep defensive line room. As I'm working with those guys on the defensive side of the ball. I'm really excited about some of those guys. I think in returning BJ Green, I think that's a big key for us. I really like where he's at mentally. Obviously, we brought in some really good transfer guys too, right? I think you start looking at, Clayton Smith, 5-star kid that came from Oklahoma. I mean, I think he has an elite level explosiveness to him that is something that you don't see very often. Prince Dorba, a kid that we brought in out of Texas that we have high expectations for. Just a couple of the transfers there. There's a bevy of guys, but I think as we get through this, and obviously get through the 15 practices of spring ball, we're going to have a better idea of obviously where we stand.
And I know Coach Dillingham said that it's in the works to go back up to Camp Tonazona. My last one for you. So how awesome is that?
You know what? I'm elated. I went there when I was working as a GA here with Coach Cutter. I think Camp T is a special place. I know it holds a near and dear place to diehard Sun Devil fans, and I couldn't agree with that more. And I know Coach Dillingham feels the same way, and we're going to be excited and elated. And and you talk to guys that have been in the program, Vince Amy that played here and went to Camp T. I mean, there's just something about going up there and building that bond and kind of separating, especially now when kids are all on their phones and the media, in terms of social media, just to take a break from that and focus on each other and build your team. So I'm super excited for us to be heading back up there to Camp T.
And hopefully Coach Dillingham doesn't enter the storybooks like Coach Cush, making guys walk back down the hill if they couldn't cut it. But he is Charlie Regal, assistant head coach at Arizona State. Man, thanks so much for coming out. We're going to step aside, but more Pac-12 preview coming up here on the Sideline Sports Network. Back here on Pac-12 Preview. So awesome to have head coach Charlie Regal joining us. And yes, it's all about the Pac-12. We know that. And ASU assistant head coach and special teams coordinator. Awesome being down here on Radio Row. Obviously, I talked about it Monday. We had Luis and Dejas, obviously longtime Sun Devil great. And yes, kickers are people too. We found that out on Monday. No, we always knew that. But again, so glad Coach Regal came down. We also got to catch up with earlier this week. I caught up with the Pac-12 Network's Ashley Adamson, and we talked, obviously, state of the conference, a little bit of football, a little bit of hoops, and, well, we're going to bring that to you now here on Pac-12 Preview. This is me and Ashley Adamson from earlier in the week here on Pac-12 Preview. Back here on Pac-12 Preview with, yes, from the Pac-12 Network, Ashley Adamson. And Ashley, thank you so much, obviously, for joining, seeing you. I love when I see you around ASU. I got to be fair to all the schools, but I'm probably not fair to one of the schools in the Pac-12 being a Sun Devil.
That's fair. It's all good. It's great to be on with you.
I appreciate it. So, okay, we'll kind of rewind. Football season, a little bit crazy. USC got hosed from the playoff, and yes, I am a conference homer, but not going to get into the whole playoff selection scheduling thing, but I mean, just overall thoughts of like what Lincoln Riley obviously did in LA, Chip Kelly obviously, was allegedly on the hot seat and what they did, but just your thoughts of Pac-12 football season this last year.
I'll be honest with you, given where it started in June with the news about USC and UCLA, if we're going to real talk here, I had no idea that it was going to be as wonderful as a football season as what it came to be. So when you finish with, I think we had 5 or 6 teams in the top 25 in the final poll, and you look at the first year head coaches, the bar has been set really high for how quickly you can turn around a program now with transfer portal and NIL and all of the rest, but I got to give a shout out to Kalen DeBoer and what he was able to do in Seattle. It's incredible. Lincoln Riley, of course, but yeah, they didn't miss out on the playoff because you got to win the championship game. So if you lose to Utah twice, love USC and they're going to get in the playoff very soon. It'll be nice in a year from now when we don't have to worry about 8 teams or 4 teams and we'll have the 12-team model. So that'll be good. But it was by far, I've been doing this. That was my 11th football season with the Pac-12 and it was my favorite one by far.
Yeah, and it's funny. We didn't even really have like a pre-show meeting, but Kalen DeBoer, that's what I was going to say to you.
Yeah.
I mean, being a Sun Devil, I know like they can't win in Tempe. I mean, I know there's all the crazy worthless, I call them broadcast stats, but Washington comes to Tempe and all of a sudden it's like it's either a shootout, they lose on a last-second field goal, but just what he did with Michael Penix Jr. I mean, and I mean. Oregon State too. That to me, what did you think of Oregon State? Because literally that team was 6 points away from being in the Pac-12 championship game.
I know. And well, first I was at that Washington ASU game. We were out here that was when we were a road show. And if you think about if they hadn't lost that game, they probably would have been in the playoff. To be honest with you, because I think 100%. They probably would have beaten Utah or USC or whoever it was. The tiebreakers. Now that we have them, now that we've done away with divisions, I can't tell you who they would have played, but. What Kalen DeBoer has done and what Michael Penix, and the fact that they're all coming back. Roma Dunze just announced he was coming back. They've been able to keep their offensive coordinator, who is phenomenal. So what they're building in Seattle is amazing. But yeah, they got to get you guys off their road schedule. Like it should never, ever come to ASU.
It's like what I say about Kansas basketball with the Pac-12 because Washington beat them like 4 years back.
Yeah.
ASU beats them. They come into Tempe the next year number 1, and ASU
beats
them again.
Exactly. No, it's good. But Oregon State, just to follow on that point, Jonathan Smith is one of my favorite humans of all time. He does a phenomenal job in what he's been able to build. And Trent Bray taking over that defense, that to me has been what's really been able to flip things. They did that all really without a quarterback, without an established quarterback.
Right.
And so you get DJ, and I'm going to have to start practicing his last name, Ungungalele, from Clemson. And I think it's going to be another special season. Right. And a lot of people were trying to lure him away.
Right. I think, and I think it changed, and they always say, people say, oh, well, if he comes to your team or your conference, they're saying, oh, DJ, like, he looked pretty good backing up Trevor Lawrence, but he never got it. And transfer portal, I might not be the biggest fan of all the reason, but a change of scenery could do him good. And
we've seen it play out.
Exactly.
I mean, think about Michael Penix.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and we saw flashes of what he did at IU.
Oh, yeah.
But same with Bo Nix.
And only getting sacked 5 times.
Exactly.
For Michael, you're saying Kellen DeBoer, that was awesome because when I said, the demand against ASU 50 passes, was over 50 passes. And I kept saying on this show, if they just run the ball, I'm like, less could be more. Yeah. But, yeah, no. So basketball season real quick. Obviously, Arizona. See, I said U of A. I'm polite. See? Arizona. But UCLA. USC's getting hot now.
Yeah, they are.
ASU had that tough loss to Oregon last Saturday here in Tempe. They split. They each won on each other's home court. Just your thoughts about, outside of Arizona, UCLA definitely going to the tournament. I mean, ASU, Oregon, USC, Utah. Who do you think?
It's been a weird season because for ASU, we'll talk about ASU. When their start to conference play, it was like, oh, they're the real deal. They go to Eugene and just absolutely crush the Ducks. I mean, I think that was the largest margin of defeat for Dana Elman, if I'm not mistaken. But it was an impressive, unbelievable performance, an unbelievable start. The LA schools come to town, and USC is on the rise. There's no question about it, even though they've got a little bit of injury issues that are popping up. But ASU has the peak, we've seen it. And so the question is, who's going to separate themselves as we now go into the most critical stretch of the regular season as you try and hit your stride going into March. And it's going to be really interesting. I think, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I think ASU closes out with a road trip
in LA.
Yes. Yep. So they have, by anybody in the conference, the 3 hardest final games to close out, because I think they're all away too.
Yep.
To close out the regular season, you could look at it one way and say, that's like the death march. Like, how are they going to get through that? That's gauntlet. Or you could say you got some really great opportunities to go win some big games and pad your resume. So I believe in Bobby Hurley, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Well, originally from Jersey, I believe in Bobby Hurley too. Ashley, thank you so much.
Hey.
Check her out on the Pac-12 network. Hopefully they send you to LA for those games. Me being an Arizona
I
homer,
wish.
but
I'll talk to my boss about that.
I'm lobbying for her now, but we're going to get out here more on Pac-12 preview coming up here. Absolutely awesome to sit down with Ashley Adamson. And again, we had a few minutes and even talk a little hoops at the end. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting run for the, well, not so much ASU and or for U of A and UCLA, but an interesting run for those middle four teams that are looking to get into the tournament. So glad we catch up with Ashley Adamson. And I know a lot of you now next are going to say, and again, she wasn't a Sun Devil, but a lot of Sun Devil heavy. Well, it's in Arizona. We're in downtown Phoenix. So a lot of former Sun Devils are here. And Jake Plummer, Jake the Snake Plummer, former Sun Devil great, took a few minutes of his time to talk about what he's doing now with UMBO and naturalistic medicine and treatment and stuff like that. And yes, of course, his glory days at Arizona State. So, without further ado, from Radio Row here for Super Bowl 57, here's Jake Plummer and I talking about what he's been doing now and his time at ASU. As we are back here with Jake Plummer on Pac-12 preview, and man, always great to obviously have a Pac-12 legend back in here. And ever since you're done with football, you have been up to a lot of great developmental stuff. But firstly, we'll get to that in a second. But firstly, let's talk about your time on, well, Pac-10 then, but I mean, Pac-10, Pac-12, and I mean, there's some great, because I know obviously you played with, I was just talking about Keith Poole, but I mean, Pat Tillman, like that team that you guys had such a great bond. What was the time like there at ASU for you?
It was really fun, to make the decision to become a Sun Devil back when, now today it's like a free agency. You're a high school kid, you're getting to choose and pick, and like, who's going to pay me more? I didn't give a damn about anything, but Coach Snyder said we can have a chance with you being a key piece to our team to win a national title, and he was the only coach that said that. So I wanted to see what he could do, if he could pull that off, and we almost did. So coming down here and playing at ASU was a thrill. It was fun to get out of Idaho, come down playing in the Pac-10, be one step away from my dream in the NFL. And you mentioned a few of the guys, Keith Poole, Pat Tillman, Derek Rogers, Juan Roque, Steve Bush, a local guy. We had such an amazing cast of characters and teammates that really loved and cared for each other. And that was all from Bruce Snyder. Bruce instilling in us the ability to care for your teammates and really be in the moment one at a time, meaning like be here at the next thing. What's next? What's the thing you're doing now? Let's be in that now, not worried about running 10 110s. Let's just run this one and then see what's next. And he kind of zen in a way, in a way like Buddha in a way, but not in the typical way that would be looked upon as spiritual or too much. He had his own way to flip it for us, and great coach, and we had a lot of fun.
I want to just follow up on that real quick, but because Bruce Snyder, it seemed like he let you guys be. I mean, obviously a football team, you always hear any locker room, a million different personalities, backgrounds, but he let you guys be your personalities, but he still had that presence of the respected leader. What was that balance just like playing with him? Because he really did let you guys be you.
He was a great coach, and he had a great staff. I mean, I got coached by Bobby Petrino, Hugh Jackson, two guys that have gone on to play coach in the NFL as the head coaches. So, I was immediately introduced to football, and then also they let me really be who I was and let me lead how I was. I was a fiery, competitive, passionate guy, and they really helped channel that into the right direction, that I could have a positive effect on my teammates and we could all rise together. And so Bruce was amazing to orchestrate that, to pull everybody together, to recruit the right guys, to put the coaching staff together. He pulled that all together. I thank him a lot for the trajectory of where my life has gone since then. And then also just to be, have met the people that I met in that journey, and now to where I'm at today. And we left an indelible impression on the Valley in that 96 team and the 97 Rose Bowl. Even though we lost, we're one of the teams they talk about because we did have a cast of characters that embodied, the game and passionate about it. And we all were our own leaders, and we all took ownership of what we had to get done in order to go out there and do our best when the coaches gave us the tools to go out on the Saturdays and whatever to go out and play and perform.
Absolutely. And being a young, obviously a broadcasting major student, getting to come out to practice and one of your assistants, Coach Gazzetto. Well, I'm talking about him. He scared me once, and he was nice, but just his intensity scared me too. Love Coach Gazzetto. But working with Rashad Evans, I mean, I know you guys doing the umbo, the mushrooms. You've always been, to me, in the forefront. I mean, when you hear people talk about medicine, and I know you probably heard a million stories like I did, just, people, that have to take medications, and all of a sudden they start getting off the pills and they're feeling better. So obviously, ways to go. And you and Rashad Evans with the umbo and the mushrooms. Okay, first of all, how did you stumble? I won't even say stumble. How did you come across this in development, and then bringing it to the forefront and actually educating people on obviously the great health? Because I know, and we'll get to, you do a lot with veterans too with this. But I mean, just the idea. I mean, again, basic but very awesome.
Yeah, it's just nature. It's been here forever. It's not like it's some revolutionary thing we stumbled upon in a lab. As penicillin was found out by an accident. A mold spore landed in a petri dish, and here's penicillin. And so nature's here to teach us if we're open to learn and willing to accept, where you're at and become aware of where you can get to. This has just been a fun journey to go down. As myself, just benefiting from I guess my first step was into Charlotte's Web and hemp, which was a very misunderstood plant. One plant, marijuana and hemp, 2 plants. We didn't have a clue about them because we were told, fry your brain and it's not good for you, no medicinal value. Well, we're finding out that those people were lying to us. And then when you go, wait, they were lying, maybe there's other people that maybe aren't telling us the truth, or failing to share with us some wisdom they may have or may not have yet even been open to. So for me, I have to share this because mushrooms, it's an entire kingdom. I call it a queendom because there are so many mushrooms in this world. The mycelial web underneath us is really the epitome of connection and sharing and thriving all as one. The mycelium shares nutrients from tree to tree. It doesn't take it all in and I'm going to be a billionaire and fly to Mars. No, I'm going to spread my what I have, my nutrients. I'm going to help everybody thrive, and that's what the mushrooms are teaching me is like everyone can thrive. Let's envision a future where we all feel maybe just 5% better, and that 5% can get you to be doing what you have always wanted to do, which is climb that mountain. And now that I've climbed that mountain, I'm going to go climb a bigger mountain, and then all of a sudden your life changes, and that's just through opening up to the possibilities of our human potential.
And I heard you say something earlier. I was trying to, obviously, of course, Pac-12 always bring get a Pac-12 player on here. But I heard you saying something. The mushrooms different than the fingertips, how your fingerprints are different.
Yeah, everyone has a different fingerprint. Every spore print that you take a mushroom cap and you lay it onto paper and that drops the spores. There's not one identical print of all the mushrooms in the world, and we don't know how many mushrooms there are. I mean, they're everywhere. Fungi are everywhere, and not all of them are great for us. There are some that can kill you, or are very deadly and poisonous. But is alcohol non-poisonous? And that's a huge sponsor of the Super Bowl. So we got to look at what we're believing and how we're thinking. Think for yourself or be thought for, and as you think, so you become. So I'm going to think about living a long time, being healthy, and helping more people attain a better quality of life. And getumbo.com is where you can read more about some blogs, some information. If you're interested, if you're thinking, man, I really don't like the way these pharmaceutical pills are making me feel, or my doctor keeps telling me this, but I don't feel better. And I'm not saying Western medicine is not good. There are some great parts, but a lot of it, you can take health into your own hands. And go check it out. Go check out getumbo.com. Join our newsletter. We're here to share the knowledge that we're receiving.
And then I saw, in reading about, and it sounds very tasty, the macadamia cashew mushroom bars.
Yeah.
Did you have an influence in that flavor? Because I'm a dessert person anyway, but that sounds amazing.
Well, we had a different formulation of coconut cream or coconut milk, I think it was. And so the cream, so I got to taste one of the final renditions. And then obviously the mushrooms in that are a little bit different. There's some new ones, Tremella, Poria sclerosa, oyster mushrooms, a little bit different than most people have heard besides lion's mane and cordyceps, reishi and turkey tail. Those are the main 4 functional mushrooms that people know about. But shiitakes are packed full of a lot of really goodness for us, a lot of nutrients and minerals and stuff that we need to function. So, yeah, this is all just an opportunity to go share and also hold myself to live to a different standard of being active, and being on it, and enjoying life to the fullest of what we're presented here on this great earth.
And then in helping with the military, I mean, obviously, people that know you, sir, obviously very close with Pat. Like you said, you guys, it wasn't just offense, defense. The team had that bond. But stuff you do benefits because you do a lot. I mean, stuff you've done for the military. Is this like involved in it, and what are you doing?
I mean, I would back up and say I don't do as much as I would like to, but I think that at some point, you can say, oh, our veterans are not treated well and they need more help. And as we form UMBO and we grow into a company that's able to give back, one of our main things was to give back to nonprofits, and one of those is Unlimited Sciences, where we are doing the responsible research of psychedelics, and we're seeing that psychedelics are having a large and a very monumental change and help in some people's lives, especially veterans, who come back with a lot of similar ailments that football players have. Right. But theirs is a little more deeper and deep set, so we're trying to help them. We would love to help more of them and do what I think our country does a disservice, is to give them a better chance to live a better quality of life post-service. So, yeah, there's more to be done. There's always opportunities. I'm one person, along with many of my connections, doing a lot of great things, and that's what I ask is, if you can do something good in the world, do it. Don't hesitate.
See, ASU leading in innovation, because us as students going forward and always giving back. Jake, hey, congratulations on it. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll have more coming up here on Pac-12 Preview. Well, that is so awesome of Jake the Snake to take time and do that, as, again, you saw what he was doing. Again, just more innovation, as ASU has been, again, credited as the leader in innovation. I guess there's many studies, but again, look what Jake Plummer's doing for, again, people that need it, but again, former athletes, a lot of former athletes, and obviously, like you said, his work military-wise as well. So, again, so glad we got to catch up with Jake Plummer. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. It's not doing it for this edition, yes. Again, so glad we can bring that back to you. Again, sorry with a few little technical difficulties with Jake Plummer, but again, technology. It was our friend. It was awesome, and it was also our pseudo foe last week. But just again, so great to be down on Radio Row. I will be bringing you more Pac-12 interviews as well. People from the Pac-12, pardon me, I should say, that I got to talk to on Radio Row, just getting so many interviews and, legends from a few minutes back, as we like to say, and current Pac-12 players too as well. So yeah, just an overall great week down on Radio Row. Got to give a shout out to my man, Eric Wilson, who again assisted me in both shows last week, Monday and Friday, but making them, I shouldn't even say assisted, made them look a lot better than I could have done on my own. So Eric doing a phenomenal job. And again, him and I had a lot of great interviews with people that were in for the Super Bowl, and a lot of great events that the NFL put on. Just amazing to be a part of, and the people you get to see. And it's funny because you hear a lot of people say, oh, I saw you, 51 weeks ago. They see each other once a year at Radio Row or any Super Bowl media. It was an awesome game last night, and yes, Eric's probably a little stung, but it was a great game, and I'm glad it wasn't the blowout that some people had predicted. A little bit of a blowout, but just what a phenomenal game. Back and forth was the Super Bowl as we saw, and not going to give too much away, but we will be talking about that tonight on the Sports Arena. Non-shameless plug. I would say shameless plug. Forget that. Non-shameless plug. You need to check us out on the Sports Arena tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern. You will see us, me, Eric, Braylon, John, talking the week that was. The game, yes. We will break that down. A few things that I definitely want to get to in watching it, but overall, just a solid game, but a phenomenal week. The contacts people we were able to connect with, I should say, new friends of the show, and just in general. And man, awesome time last week. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to talk a little men's and women's hoops in the Pac-12, as it was, again, yes, the Super Bowl was going on, but nothing stopped. On Saturday, Stanford beat Arizona on the road, a huge upset. That was huge. Arizona went in at number 4. So, well, let's go. I should go to Thursday. First Thursday, Arizona beat up on Cal, 85-62. UCLA handled Oregon State 62-47, and Arizona State it was going down the stretch, but they beat Stanford 69-18. Yeah, they only scored 18 points and they came and won. No, 69-65. DJ Horn led ASU with 18 points. Also had 6 rebounds for the Sun Devils. And then on USC also beat Oregon. Or Oregon beat USC, which was huge. That was 2 big ones in a row for the Ducks. And I saw that Thursday night, coming off the Saturday night win the previous week over ASU after falling to U of A. But they beat ASU. They beat USC, who, again, you start looking at bracket, is right there. Oregon gets that one on Thursday. That was huge on. And then, as we go to Saturday, Washington. Yeah, so Saturday was big too, because like I said, Stanford somehow upsets Arizona 88-79, and Arizona's still 22-4 on the season. So they're right there. But UCLA turned around and beat Oregon 70-63. Oregon trying to get the sweep of LA, but it keeps them right there. Oregon State, though, turns around and upsets USC. So USC taking 2 losses on that side definitely helps out Arizona State now, as the Sun Devils, again, swept the Northern California schools. They beat Cal in overtime on Saturday, which, yes, we were doing stuff Saturday. I was watching, I was looking in, obviously a little nervous, but the Sun Devils turn around and win 2 in a row, and now they're 9-6 in the Pac-12. Utah handles Colorado 73-62 on Saturday, and then an Apple Cup matchup goes to the Washington State Cougars. They beat the Huskies 56-51 on Saturday. And when we look at the standings now on the men's side after the weekend, UCLA still up top. They're 12-2 and in control. It would take a lot for them now to not be regular season Pac-12 champs. The Bruins, number 4 in the country, coming out. Arizona fell to number 8 in the country, but they are 11-4 in conference. Utah at 10-5. This is interesting now, because you have USC at 9-5, and then you have ASU and Oregon, both at 9-6. ASU and Oregon split on the season, and I guess other tiebreakers. ASU's listed just above Oregon in the standings. USC, though, with the 2 losses in a row now, and you have, again, schedule coming up very tough. But then we look at, like I said, Oregon's 9-6 in conference, and then after that, both Colorado and Washington State at 6-9, Stanford at 5-9, the Huskies of UW at 5-10, Oregon State 4-11, and yes, tough season for Cal. They are 2-12 in conference play. But you look at those top 2 teams: UCLA 21-4 on the season, Arizona 22-4 on the season. Overall, not obviously in conference play, but Utah 17-9, USC 17-8, Arizona State 18-8. So those 5 teams right there. Oregon now fallen to 15-11. I said 9-6. That's very tough for them. But I think
the matchups coming up, and when we look at, well, Arizona, because again, UCLA definitely going to be regular season champs in the Pac-12. But for Arizona coming up after they beat Cal, you lose to Stanford. Now, home games this week. As they take on they take on Utah first on the 16th, do the Wildcats in Tucson, and then they have Colorado on Saturday. That is going to be huge. Revenge factor for Utah, because in December, when these teams started Pac-12 play, Utah beat Arizona. Granted, on their home court, they defended their home court, but looked to be a little bit of an early season upset. And we see what Utah has done now, as I talked about in the standings, doing just a phenomenal job in conference play. But they did fall at Utah. So that would be huge to avenge that. They haven't played Colorado yet, so they'll play next Saturday. As for Arizona State, they'll play Colorado on Thursday in Tempe. Yeah, in Tempe at 6 p.m. And then they have Utah Saturday at 4. But then you look, I mean, this stretch, you need to beat Colorado again. And with where Utah's at, that would definitely be a huge win if you're ASU. But it's the same for Utah, though. If you sweep Arizona again and then come down to Tempe and beat ASU for the Utes, wow. You talk about your trajectory of going into the NCAA tournament, because then you have a good chance again beating those two, and then seeing what the Arizona schools do against the Los Angeles schools. But yeah, so after ASU plays Utah, then they have a week, and on February 25th, they will head down to Tucson for another battle with rivals, in-state rivals, Arizona, and Territorial Cup points on the line. Arizona got the win in Tempe on New Year's Eve. And Arizona State looking to return the favor, a little revenge, and go down to Tucson and get that. But then both of the Arizona schools, and Ashley Adamson talked about that 3-game stretch, you have Arizona, and then you turn around for ASU, and then you take on UCLA first as they go to Los Angeles, and then they finish the season on March 4th with USC. So again, if you're able to beat Colorado again and Utah, those last 3 games, you at least have to get one of them. You can't, even though, again, huge schools, and they did lose to USC last time too. And again, the game against UCLA, that was just a heavyweight fight. That was an unbelievable game in Tempe. 74-62 was the final, but a few late buckets down the stretch, and man, that game again in the balance till very late, could have went either way. But if you're Arizona State, you definitely need to take care of business at home against the mountain schools. And then if you can get a win in Tucson, that would catapult. Or if you beat UCLA, and USC as well, because you avenge the loss. But for the Sun Devils to not have to probably win the Pac-12 tournament, you have to, if you can take 2 of those 3 games, that would be huge. Very, very, very huge, to overstate the obvious for bracketologists and all that good stuff. But yeah, and then closing out with USC, but you definitely have to win one of the 2 against UCLA and Arizona. And if you could do that and then beat USC, I would say you definitely have to win 1 game in the Pac-12 tournament. And I feel that they would be a tournament team with the body of work they've put up and how they've played as a whole all season long. But UCLA, Arizona headed to the tournament. No doubt on that one. As the seasons they've had and the way they play, and it's going to be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see those two. They'll be on opposite sides of the bracket in the Pac-12 tournament. Could they meet there again? UCLA and Arizona, absolutely. So we'll have to see from that. And then when we look at the women's side, which it's been the Stanford show. It's been the Stanford show in the Pac-12 for the Lady Cardinal, and it's, I mean, not a surprise in a way because of it's what Stanford does. But yeah, 12-2. But I will say this: Utah is right there with Stanford, and the Lady Utes having one hell of a season. If you have not seen them play, you have missed out. I haven't got to see them as much as I would like to, but in the Pac-12, you look at those two, both at 12-2, both a chance to win the regular season title, as Utah, Stanford has, well, they close out with Utah. Yeah, they close out with Utah, but Stanford beat them 74-62 the first time around and at home, but they close out with the Mountain Schools, pardon me, as the Lady Cardinal on February 23rd will take on Colorado. And then on the 25th of February, they will take on number 7 Utah. So what a way to end the season. Pac-12 on the women's side is, again, they're making that final stretch as the Stanford came this last weekend. They beat both Arizona schools. They beat Arizona 84-60 in Tucson, and then came up to Tempe and beat the Sun Devils 96-64. Now they have the LA schools next at home, USC and UCLA. And then, like I said, they close out with the Mountain Schools. But yeah, when again, the standings, so both Stanford and Utah 12-2, Colorado Lady Buffaloes at 11-3, Arizona, they are at 9-5 overall, as is UCLA and USC, all at 9-5 in conference play, I should say. Then Washington State at 6-8, both Oregon and Washington at 5-9. Cal, the Golden Bears, and the Beavers of Oregon State at 3-11. And for Coach Adair, man, no coach ever wishes this on another coach, but just the injury bug, the minutes that players have had to play. Again, not an excuse. 0-14 in conference play, 7-16 overall, but it is not going to be like that for long. So I know. Again, having gotten to see them play, again, not as much as I would like to, but enough to know that they're battling, they're working hard, but they have been through quite a bit of injury. So, but on the women's side, yeah, I mean, with Stanford and when we look at the rankings on the women's side, Stanford, again, the rankings will be updated later today. But they were number 6 last week, and Utah was 7. Arizona, Lady Wildcats, were at 17, UCLA at 18. So we'll see where they go from there. Colorado entered the top 25 last week at 25. So Colorado, UCLA, Arizona, Utah, and Stanford on the women's side in this conference. And just, again, Stanford fell 4 spots. Team that is 22-3, but yeah, they were at number 2. They were at number 6 last week. The rankings will be out later today. And to wrap it up, I didn't mention that on the men's side as I was getting ready for the show last night after the Super Bowl and looking at the rankings. But The men's updated, UCLA up 3 spots to number 4 at 21-4. Arizona, well, they swapped places with UCLA with that one loss to Stanford. They dropped 4 spots, but they're at number 8, 22-4, like I said. And then, yeah, those are the only 2 teams in the Pac-12 that are in the top 25, but both UCLA and Arizona, they're no surprise, like I said, with what they've done all season long. And just looking to be threats in the tournament down the stretch. 2 teams that you would not, on the men's side, would not be shocked if they're playing for a national title or one. I mean, South Carolina on the women's side, that's the team to chase, as we know. They are undefeated, 23-0, number 1 in, well, the AP and the coaches poll. But yeah, I mean, the rankings will be updated, and on the women's side, that happens tonight, but the men's side updated. So again, so glad you got to see it again. The Pac-12 show that we did Friday, again, technology, there were some challenges. It was live for a minute, and then I got information it wasn't, and then either way, saw it did, but you got to see it again. Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much to Charlie Regal for coming out there, ASU's assistant head coach and special teams coordinator. Ashley Adamson taking the time. She was crazy busy, as you could imagine, but taking the time to sit down and talk to me. Always been a big fan what she's done at the Pac-12 network. And yeah, just awesome because we're Jake Plummer as well. Thank you so much, Jake. PlummerUmbo.com. You can check it out, what he's doing. Like I said, with Rashad Evans, so gracious of him to come by and share obviously his time at ASU, but with us. So yeah, a lot more coming up this week. Again, check us out on the Sports Arena tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, and you'll enjoy. We'll talk Super Bowl, we'll talk our week, and we'll probably slip a little NBA trade stuff in there too, because yeah, we didn't get to talk about it a ton on the Sports Arena last week, but hey, we were busy covering a lot of stuff, and the Super Bowl, huge. But yeah, it's the powers of NBA teams may have shifted, and we'll see how teams do down the stretch. But see you tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern. And for now, I am out of here. Michael Carastino at Diablo00. Hit me up on Twitter. I am out. And as always, though, for all my guys, forks up.